All right, it's a few minutes after the hour. I think that there still might be some people joining, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for coming today to this webinar. We're going to discuss Ephesoft Future State Systems Accelerator and Reporting. It is going to be talking about how Future State Systems Accelerator works hand in hand with Ephesoft Transact to deal with highly variable document use cases. And we're going to describe what that means and describe those use cases in just a second. The agenda today is we're going to talk about who is Zia Consulting, and why you're here today and what we do. Then we're going to talk about the Ephesoft Transact process and what it does, just kind of like out of the box. And then we're going to go into what we just described as a highly variable documents. What are those use cases? What are those document types? Why are they highly variable? And then we're going to go into who Future State Systems is, and as well as what the accelerator and why they created this accelerator. And then we're going to have a demo of it. I'm Pat Myers. I'm a co-founder of Zia Consulting, the executive vice president. And today we have Derek Brand, who's a managing director over at Future State Systems. And thank you, Derek, for being up so early. He's in Australia, so he is accommodating us quite drastically.
Morning, everybody.
So who is Zia Consulting? We're going to be 20 years in next month, so time flies. What we deal with is content-centric problems. And so we work with everything to million to multi-billion-dollar companies, and going in and having our expert, second to none business analysts go in and determine how we can apply technology. So we don't just apply technology, we figure out what we're trying to achieve and then measure against those goals. We're award-winning within the platforms that we work in. And so we have content repository technology, robotic process automation technology, business process automation technology, and of course, capture technology, as well as we do a slew of integrations into line of business systems. And we do it well. We have a high retention rate of our customers, so they're satisfied with the work that we provide for them. Going a little bit deeper, what do we work in is hyperautomation. And so what is hyperautomation? We've been doing it for like 10 years and the names have changed a bit, but it really is trying to automate business processes and taking away any sort of mundane tasks that can be automated, whether it be a decision or process type of automation. And really at the core of it, doing looking at disruptive innovation. So disruptive innovation is really not a product, it's a process. And so it's really taking a step back and then looking at what you did, what you're doing, what you want to do, what you've historically done, and really trying to change and make it better for your clients and as well as your employees. As we know today, there's a lack of skilled workers, there is issues with trying to lower our costs. And so having that innovation and then coupling that with digital transformation, hyperautomation is where you truly achieve your goals. And we work on rescue projects, and some people take offense by this terminology, but some of the technology is difficult, and sometimes you're not getting the results that you set out to have when you started applying technology. And we're experts in those technology. That's why we're award-winning. We have satisfied customers. And so going in and trying to assess what you're trying to achieve again, and then what you've done, and then make modifications and making folks ultimately happy. That's what we work in with that rescue projects. And we work within managed services and hosting. And so in today's world, people are less concerned about trying to have applications on site or being managing those. And so this really takes a step back and like saying that tool is a tool set, and whether it be a repository technology or capture technology, RPA, all those other things that I mentioned before, and just not having to worry about the day-to-day maintenance and care and feeding and upgrade and hot patches, and then working with you to understand like when we can do this, and having like more of an uptime, less of a headache, and more of a streamlined process in life. That's what we do within our managed services and hosting. So not all of you might be tuned into what Ephesoft Transact is, as well as like how it does it. And so Ephesoft Transact is an intelligent document processor. Looking at the process that it does is you're able to get information in, and there's a slew of ways of getting information in, whether that be monitoring an email, monitoring some sort of shared folder, being able to scan directly into it, being able to have integrations with line of business systems. And then going through it, being able to look at the different pages, classify those pages, and then kind of human in the loop. If there's something that we're not confident about, being able to put that in front of an operator's eyes and making sure that they're making the right choices. And then once those the classification is made, whether it be automator or a combination of automation as well as operator, then lifting that information off, and then being able to, again, check to make sure that the confidence is achieved. If not, being able to put that in front of an operator, and then ultimately being able to get that information out, whether it be driving a business process in business process automation, pushing it to a line of business system, pushing it to a document repository. One of the cool features about Ephesoft Transact as well is that this can actually be used kind of like as an embedded capture system. So if you're like, hey, I don't want to have these kind of like reviews in a separate utility, what you can do is use the same trained models, and you can actually use those as RESTful calls and saying, classify, extract this information for me. And then it will tell you, you'll look at those confidences, and then you can figure out what to do. So now let's talk about what those highly variable documents are. And so the highly variable documents, and we're kind of have broken down here as use cases, are of course accounts payable. So you have invoices, POs, order acknowledgements, a whole other bunch of document types. And they're coming in from a slew of vendors. And so those different vendors lay it out a different way, expose it a different way, use different labeling in certain ways. So those become difficult to maintain, and we'll talk about why that is a challenge. Logistics. So again, different kinds of invoices, but invoices, bills of lading, notice of assignment, different types of documents, again, coming from a bunch of different sources, all looking a little bit differently, laying out a little bit differently, formatted a little bit differently, as well as healthcare, patient records, billing claims, lab reports, all coming in a little bit differently. And you're trying to get that variability, and you're trying to condense that into a content model or some sort of something that you can actually make actionable. So in the case of accounts payable, you want to figure out what that invoice number is. You might be able to integrate it with a back-end system to be able to validate that that's an appropriate PO, and then ultimately getting it inside of an accounts payable system, and then being able to drive your business automation. So why is that difficult? And then we'll go into what future state systems is and how they're doing it. It's time consuming. And so when we go into a client and we're trying to get that level of accuracy, that level of professional services is high because of the increased complexity. There's two ways that really you can handle it within Ephesoft Transact natively. Both of them are doable, but again, have their own challenges. The reason that there are challenges is because you can either handle it one of two ways. You can create a bunch of different document types that are specialized for that particular vendor or operations, however that layout essentially that formatting. Or you can create a single one, and then you can create prioritization of different extraction roles, which becomes difficult because all of a sudden you have a new different vendor that comes in, and then you're having to test that level of where you're trying to extract that information, as well as what is called batch class, which is the configuration for a particular process, becomes very large with both of these different ways of being able to process it. And ultimately, since time is limited and budgets are limited, then you end up with like less automation. So let's get into the next and to the meat of the process and talking about future state systems and what they're able to provide. So Derek, I'd like to hand it to you right now, and you can describe what future state systems is, as well as going into the accelerator.
Well, thank you, Pat. Hi, everybody. I'm Derek Brand. I'm the Managing Director of Future State Systems. I'm based in our head office here in Sydney, so it's a bit early at the moment. It's just after 5 a.m. So we've got a similar history to Xeer, actually, in as much as we specialize in automation, document-centric automation. We were the first implementation partner for Ephesoft in the Asia-Pacific region. And just about all of the implementations of Ephesoft in Australia and New Zealand are through ourselves, and the vast majority in the rest of Asia-Pacific. We're also very closely connected to Infor over here. We've done all of the Infor implementations, as some of you may know. Infor resell Ephesoft Transact as Infor document capture. And there's a lot of those implementations in this part of the world as there are in the US. So we started as a consulting company. We had some software, which was basically workflow type software, which we used for document-centric processes. So we were looking for a best of breed document capture system to resell and implement together with our software. And we selected Ephesoft. I was actually previously running Kofax for the Australia-New Zealand region immediately prior to starting Future State Systems. So I have a long background in this type of technology. To cut a long story short, we quickly got our first 3 customers almost concurrently. Each of those was variable document types: invoices, credit notes, statements, receipts, etc., customer orders. And for each of those implementations, we hit the same problem. So we started by trying to adopt the approach that Pat was saying, which is the out-of-the-box Ephesoft approach, which is effectively have a single document type for invoices, a single document type for credit notes, etc. Pool all the rules and try and manipulate the prioritization of those rules. And it was a nightmare. Effectively, it became too hard to manage. We'd build rules for a particular sample that we had in front of us. We'd add a few more, and then all of a sudden, the rules didn't work as expected for the ones we'd already configured. So then we started looking at alternatives, and the only real alternative was, okay, we'll have to set up a new document type for each of the suppliers' variants. But some of those customers had hundreds. In fact, a lot of them had thousands of suppliers. So that quickly became totally uneconomic. So that led to some pretty dissatisfied customers, our first 3 customers, which wasn't a good start. So we started building the accelerator. And the idea was, it makes no sense to have a customer where we've configured the extraction rules, but we can't extract perfectly when we've got perfectly good quality documents. So we basically started with a script which allowed us to build regular expressions, classify each format independently, but there was no user interface. It was just basically a script embedded into Transact. And over the years since then, that is developed into a fully blown plugin with its own product, the Accelerator product, which is installed as a plugin alongside Transact. Can be on the same server or different servers to Transact. We have a global agreement with Ephesoft whereby when they host Ephesoft in their cloud, any customer can request that we add the Accelerator plugin and database to their cloud instance. So we've got a very collaborative arrangement with Ephesoft. So how does it work? We basically use the words model and template interchangeably. We tend to use the word model in presentations because templates have got a bad name. Don't know why, because in our iteration of them, they work perfectly well. And much better, in fact, than the AI systems that we've seen. And in fact, we've replaced a number of AI systems in places like Singapore Airlines. So how does it work? We basically build these models or templates, and there are 3 types. We have specific models. So a specific model is built by adding classification rules that identify the first page of a particular. I'll use the example of invoices as we talk, but it can be any document type. They all work the same way logically. So we'll build a specific model for a particular supplier's invoice. And the first thing we do is we find data that always appears on the first page of their document. So something specific to that particular supplier, something specific to the document type, because a credit note might look very similar to an invoice, and something specific to the first page. We then build, so we can then classify the first page of an invoice from that supplier when it comes in. We build extraction rules for all of the header fields, and if in scope, we build the extraction rules for the tables. And what you'll see in the demonstration is that it's incredibly fast to build those rules. It's typically using key values, but we can build a new template totally from scratch in a couple of minutes. If we're editing an existing template, that'll take literally seconds to edit if the format of a document is changed, for example. So we'll get the very best extraction and accuracy when we built a specific model. So our normal approach is when we start an implementation, whatever the document type is, we ask the customer to give us data on the volume of invoices, credit notes, statements, sales orders, whatever the document type is for the previous 6 or 12 months. We rank those based on volume, and then we typically will build initial templates before go live to satisfy 80% of the volume. And that's typically about 20% of the supplier base or customer base. And if we get high quality documents coming into the system, then we can expect, very close to straight through processing for all of those documents, because we've identified who it is. We've got good quality OCR. We've got specific extraction rules for both the header and the tables. So happy days, they'll just typically go straight through. But we have to handle the cases where we don't have a specific template, or the supplier has modified their template. So we introduced the concept of general models. So the first general model is a general format model or template, where we're looking for particular patterns or formats of documents. So these are typically documents that come out of common systems. So it might be Oracle or SAP or MYOB or Xero in this part of the world. These are the big accounting packages. And typically 20% or so of all of the invoices that we process, or all the credit notes that we process, come from these common systems. So we build a common format, we call it general format. We build the extraction rules for that format. And then when a document comes in, the first thing we do is try to identify there's a specific model. If we can't, using the classification rules, we then check if it's a general format model. And if it is, happy days, we'll just extract all of the data. And we don't force it to stop in the Transact operator screen for somebody to review, because we're very confident it'll be right, so long as the validation rules haven't been breached. And the catch-all is what we call general classification templates or models, where we're just looking for certain words that will allow us to identify the document type. So we don't know who it's from. It's not a particular format, but we can identify it at least as an invoice or a credit note or a statement. And the nice thing about that is when we classify a document using that general classification format, we intelligently rerun all of the rules for all of the header fields and the tables, if they're in scope, from all of the specific templates that we've built, and we rank them. And the first thing we do is figure out, has that rule extracted valid data? If it has, we consider it's considered to be used to extract the data. And then the intelligent algorithms prioritize of all of the rules that qualify in, i.e. they've extracted valid data. We basically rank those, and we'll use the highest ranked rule to extract the data from both header and tables. And once we've done that, that will pass through Transact, but it will always stop for manual review. So the downside of not having a specific template or a general format classification is that they will all stop. But typically 80% plus of the time, the reuse rules have actually extracted the correct data. So there's very little that needs to be changed by the operator. So they'll change it. It will go through Ephesoft as normal. The user interface in Transact is entirely as it is today. But we'll record the fact that that particular document was classified using a general template or was unknown. And then we can fix it up in Accelerator post-event. So this concept of intelligent reuse of these rules is really what puts the accelerator apart and produces really good results, even when you don't have a specific template. So we'll get very good results and better results actually, even when we don't have a specific template, than you'll get in Ephesoft Transact using the normal approach to these variable document types in Transact. Another benefit of the system is it significantly improves document separation. So instead of just separating by looking at every page, as is the case with Ephesoft, the system is also intelligent enough to always separate or optionally separate it at the end of a file. So if you've got a supplier that's emailed in 15 invoices, all in different files, the system will know that and separate them. And if any of those files do contain multiple documents, the start pattern rules will kick in and it will separate them within a file as well. So very, very good document separation. And that obviously reduces operator intervention. And we have tools within Accelerator and our FSS reports to provide continuous improvement. So we use the filters, as you'll see in the demonstration, to show documents that you might want to look at and modify the configuration of the model. And we have reports that are specifically designed to find in the context of invoices, the suppliers' documents that are having the most operator intervention, or if we've got an existing template, the templates that are requiring the highest intervention. And then when we're managing and maintaining the system, we can focus on modifying or building templates that actually matter the most by getting the biggest improvements in straight-through processing or the biggest reductions in operator intervention. So that's in a nutshell what it's all about. And it works brilliantly, basically. About half our customers started with a combination of Transact and Accelerator, and half of them were originally Ephesoft Transact alone, and then they've subsequently added Accelerator to enhance throughput, straight-through processing, classification, extraction accuracy. Next slide, please.
And before we go on, I just wanted to kind of chime in, just in case people didn't pick that up. One of the niceties around and a really great name for Accelerator is Derek mentioned around the generic models and being able to use, like, have an algorithm to figure out what extraction rules may work. As you develop those different extraction rules, even the specific models, as you develop those, inside of the tool will be like, I think it's this one. So as you have, like, 10, you're probably creating the rules. As you have 20, it starts saying, well, is this a rule? As you start creating 100, then it starts actually being really precise of saying, well, I think that this is. So even when you're creating that specific model, it's just next, 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 next. Much like the operator would be inside of the validation screen. So I just wanted to call that out before I went to the next screen.
No, that's very important, Pat. Yeah, and we've actually done replaced a number of what you would call traditional templating systems from companies like IBM, and that was the biggest enhancement that all of the customers commented on. In the old world, if you didn't have a template, you got nothing, and the operator had to enter everything. And then every time they built a new template, they had to build rules for everything. Whereas with this, the reuse basically gives you very good results without a specific template. And when you're building a new template, all of the rules are basically sitting there ranked, and all you have to do is make sure that they're correct, and the vast majority of the time they will be correct, as you'll see in the demo.
Okay, and I didn't stop you there.
That's all right.
In advance, I know that we need to get to the demo as soon as possible.
Yeah.
It's already almost 30 after.
Okay. All right. So what it all means is basic for an existing Transact customer is dramatically reduced configuration time, much better classification, extraction accuracy, straight-through processing. As you all know, straight-through processing isn't the be-all and end-all. If you're getting 99% better extraction accuracy, then and low straight-through processing, that's still a big win. but we'll get very high straight-through processing rates as well. And this variant level reporting, ongoing reporting, that makes it very simple for continuous improvement is key as well. One thing we actually do in a lot of our implementations is we build a separate doc type for, we call it something like, delete. So if your suppliers are consistently sending into you documents that you don't care about, so they'll send you an invoice, one-page invoice, and a 50-page terms and conditions document, we'll just build a cover-all doc type like delete, and we'll configure templates and models within that doc type to identify these rogue documents. And then they won't stop within Transact, because we'll classify them as such, and then we'll auto delete them prior to export, or we'll append them to the end of the invoice. And that can make a big difference as well to straight-through processing rates. Next slide, please. So yeah, I mean, this is just a quote from one of our customers over this part of the world, and I don't think this is untypical. They had a straight-through processing rate. This was initially an invoice implementation, one of those first three. They got about a 30% straight-through processing rate. We built the first iteration of Accelerator, and they went up immediately to very high straight-through processing rates, and they've maintained that as they've rolled out lots of different document types going forward. Exactly the same happens every time we get a Transact existing customer that we add Accelerator to. So it's pretty basic stuff. It's just much better results and much faster and much less effort. And as I think you'll see in the demonstration, building the templates or the models isn't particularly a technical task because of this reuse. We've already got all of the rules there. So most of our customers have AP staff or admin staff building these models, not IT staff. And I think this quote is actually from one of Zia's Accelerator customers, so you might want to talk about this one, Pat.
Sure, let me just unmute myself. So this is a customer that we just had again, very similar story, so I'm not going to take time because I know that the demo is about 35 minutes. But essentially they had Ephesoft, we applied FSS inside of there, and they're extremely happy. So I'll just keep it at that. And I think that we can move inside of the demo.
All right, I'll leave it to you. So yeah, so this is one of my consultants who does a lot of the implementations. He's not a demo guy, he's just a good guy at getting things done. But he'll show you Accelerator, then a little bit of reports, very high level, but hopefully you'll get the idea. And for the reporting, we've basically just taken some data, taken some templates out so that the results aren't great, and then shown you how we can identify how to improve that. So over to the demo.
And just to let you know, it looks like we're running about 5 minutes over. And so just to set people's expectations, I'm going to start it now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dave from...
I think we've lost the sound.
I'm being told that they can't hear the audio, so let me try that again. Sorry about that. Please, somebody give me a heads up in just a second to see if they can hear it now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dave from FSS, and I'm it'll walk you through the accelerator at a fairly high level due to time constraints. But what I've done so far, I've uploaded a batch with about 15, 16 documents in it into Ephesoft, and I'm just going to show you the results of that in here. So what we have is a bunch of configured documents and templates. So they're all extracting as we would expect for something that's been configured. You can see here. And then just an OCR confidence issue with this one. But then we get to our first document that I've caused to go into error. So I've tweaked the rule for the order number in Accelerator so that it would error in Accelerator and not extract the data correctly. And then it's used reuse to fill in a valid purchase order using existing rules in the system. Or anytime it uses reuse, the field will be read in Transact. And yeah, that is what's happened for these 3 documents. And then we have 4 that are they were unknown, unconfigured, but they've classified as either general classification, which is these 3, including that one, or a general format template. And in this case, because it's general format and we know where the data is, it's extracted everything correctly. For the ones that classified as general classification, it's used reuse to attempt to give us valid data, and also it will stop every single field that it's used reuse for manual review, because it's happy it's got the data, but it's not confident enough to send it straight through without some eyes on it. And yeah, what I'm going to show you now is these documents in Accelerator to give you a better idea of what is actually going on behind the scenes. So here we have the FSS Accelerator. This is just the configuration screen, which is all I'm really going to show today. So on the right-hand side, we have our document selector. So we've got filters, a search bar where we can search for template names, document types, batch instance IDs, and we can save templates, reprocess them. And anything we do in here doesn't impact existing batches that are in Transact. So it's completely separate, so we can work on them with, and these batches don't need to stay in Transact. They can get pushed through and happy days. So yeah, we've got all of our batches will be here. We can click on whatever document we're after and view them. We can pop it out onto another screen if we feel like it. And yeah, just get a bigger view of it. We've got filters, so unknowns, general classification, general format, errors. So they're the 3 I put into error earlier. Multiple is if it's classified as multiple templates. Any invalid, so it's extracted invalid data. It's the same thing done on made there, so it's like frames and everything like that. So just really quickly, that's this, and we use the filters and the color coding to decide what we need to work on, and anything that's white, it's happy that it's extracted the correct data. And so yeah, what we're going to do is focus on the ones in error and that did not classify as a template. So without further ado, let's click on our first unknown document. And what we do here, we start with classification. So what we want to do in classification is give it a template name, determine what document type it is. So let me just click on that again. So yeah, we can see the document. We can say it's a tax invoice, and that's what it's classified as using our general template. We want to stick to a common naming convention. So the supplier number and then supplier name is what we generally do. And the reason for that is when we click confirm, it's checking in the database whether the template exists with that name already. And if it does, it'll prompt us that we might be overriding an existing one. And this could be a variant, so we might want to give it a different name. And then, yeah, just for creating new ones, we want to do specific, but if at the start of implementations, we'll probably configure a bunch of general formats and a general classification for each document type. And Derek should have spoken on those already. So what we want to do, we want to give it some start patterns. So start patterns are basically saying these rules, these series of words appear on the first page of every, in this case, invoice from this supplier. So we want something unique to the company. We can just select it, either copy and paste or drag and drop. Something unique to the document type. And then ideally something unique to the first page. We may not have something unique to the first page, which is where document name patterns come in. And we can use those to say, we're going to classify this document as BART engineering until we hit our end pattern. So we're not over separating a 10-page document or anything like that. So that, at a very basic level, that's our classification type. So anytime these three rules appear on the same page of a document, it's going to classify it as BART engineering and then apply the extraction rules that we're about to do to that that document. So now we move on to our document level fields. And one of the first things you'll see is most of the data is already looking correct, and it's grabbed the information on the page. So that is our reuse of work. So the way reuse works is we have existing rules in this this batch class for this document type, and we also have validation rules for each of the fields. So we are essentially reusing those rules. We're checking to see if those rules extract data, and then if they do extract data, is that data valid? And we're only presenting valid values for reuse. So you won't see a jumble of words for invoice date, for example, because we're refining it to just what is a valid date. So what we do really quickly is, in this case, it's got everything correct. And I can see that from my highlighting. We can see where it's extracted the data from. It's all looking good apart from invoice date. But I can also see a box in this color around where the invoice date actually is. So I know that clicking my reuse rules will get me to that eventually. And now you can see the box around this and down here. So we've configured all of our document fields for this. It's extracting it from the correct locations. If we didn't have any reuse, and I'll just do an example for date here, and maybe let's do a PO number one. We'll just clear that out. So we've got invoice date and PO number, and what we want to do. So we've got different options. Key value regex is the one we strongly recommend, and this is using relative locations. So our key, what we're looking for, and as an aside to that, it doesn't have to be using date. It's just anything that will be relatively located to it. So if date's never changing and phone is never moving, we could in theory use that, but we realistically we want to use something that might appear on other documents to help us with our reuse options. So I've put a box around date with my key, which color coded here, and then my value over here. And don't worry about these overlapping and touching it. The whole span has to be inside, and I could even make this much bigger. And so if I just click the populate button, that will automatically fill in what's in my key box there. But because we've got our dot plus, so that's our default rule, that will just grab everything within our box. But again, we've got validation rules set up within Accelerator, which not only limit the reuse that's presented to us, but they also present as options in this dropdown. And in our next release, we've got like English language explanations for what these regexes mean. So even Derek could understand them. So that's essentially just refining this. I could make the box smaller, but there's no real need to. And it's all relative again. So if date moved up or down, say that it was under a table and the table got bigger or smaller, it doesn't matter as long as it's still in the same relative position to where it was previously. What we can do, and I'll do the same with PO number, just very quickly. Boom, boom. Let's bring that, make it a bit bigger, and populate, and let's use our regex again. And again, we're happy with it. If we wanted to hard code a value, so maybe this ABN number, which is our tax number in Australia, maybe that was not always reading correctly due to OCR issues, and it's incredibly static data that is on the document. I could potentially hard code that, and basically hard coding it is just saying anytime that it classifies as this BART engineering document, because these star patterns have fired, we want to we'll just automatically fill this in, and that is at a fairly high level how we create new template doc level fields, and we can see it's saying changed here. So if I can save these changes, and now any time that this happened, these come up in Transact, we've got the correct rules going for them. I'll talk about tables in 2 seconds, but this is the one which I've made fail. So we can see my rule. I just put a Z in there. So it's kind of mimicking them changing the format of their document or the wording of their document. So I could either fix up the rule that I have for it, or if we went back to the error, we can again see a box in this color around it. So we know that if I click my reuse button, I'm going to get a value for it. And on these ones that have matched correctly, it's unlikely that it'll ever happen that it's actually grabbed the wrong amount or something, but I could generate reuse for like this GST amount, for example, or maybe invoice date, and it will present me with reuse options, but each time it's getting the right one. So it was a poor example. but yeah, just because it doesn't say that there's reuse there, if it says match, there's quite possibly additional reuse options. And you just click generate reuse. And that is very quickly document level fields and configuring it. It's incredibly easy. We also have the ability to transform. So I could add a transformation into my invoice number, for example, and say this is always an I at the beginning of this invoice number, but it's always reading as a 1. I could say replace the first 1 with an I, and then we can test what that would do with the results, and it would put an I in there. So useful for correcting consistent OCR issues, for things like utility bills where they don't actually provide you an invoice number. We could be getting an account number and add and this is just saying the end of the string. We could replace the end of the string with the invoice date. So that will automatically insert the invoice date as a dash afterwards. So if I just save this for ESCO now, and I can reprocess these and see the results of anything I've done without having to push them through Transact again or anything. So if I go to here, it tells us we've transformed it. We've got an I at the beginning, got the date at the end, and our next release also has date transformations and changing the capitals or lowercase and all of that. And now, very briefly, I will talk about tables. So again, I could use generate reuse, but I'm going to do this one from scratch just to show you the key principles of it. So similar to our document start patterns, our start pattern for tables, what we're looking for is the beginning of our where the table begins. So line number, description, happy days, it will highlight the row that it's happening on. And this is all the exact OCR that we've got from Transact in line by line. And the beauty of doing it at line level and defining our columns is that we're not dependent on looking, especially when there's black on grey background and the OCR struggles. We don't even have to use this line. We could use something up here and depend on our anchor, which I'm about to talk about. But we also want to give it an end pattern. So in this case, invoice taxes, which you can see here. And I might even chuck in an or statement of subtotal. So in case they don't include that, let's just chuck in subtotal as well. Our soft stop pattern is looking for, it's saying stop extracting our table when you get to this part of the document, but continue looking for another start pattern. So it's a good way of eliminating header and footer information that we don't want to extract in our table, and allows us to use much simpler rules. Whereas a hard stop is saying absolutely stop extracting here. We don't want any more information after this point. And it's useful if someone includes terms and conditions or something in their table, or just additional data that we don't care about. But in this case, I only need the soft stop. And we've defined our table location. And now we just want to extract the correct data. And again, like the key value things, we have validation rules that we can use. So if we don't want to use the dot plus, which may be grabbing too much information. So in this case, we're defining our columns. So we're saying part numbers within this area, descriptions within the same area basically, and unit prices over here. unit price, quantities over yonder, and then total is over here. And I'll talk about this anchor column very shortly, but it's essentially just in case any of these columns that we're actually trying to extract don't work as an anchor. And what an anchor is, it is saying this is the beginning or end of my logical row. So in this case, we want to use total. So this is always going to appear at the top of a row. And we're happy to use that. If it appeared at the bottom of every row, we could flip it over. And I use an anchor just because quite often, especially if they're the description kind of is in the middle and the other data's centered on it, we need to use something else to determine where the beginning or end of a logical row is. So this is using all.plus, remember? I click view extracted table, it's got us a whole bunch of garbage. The total's fine, but everything else is a little bit disappointing, which is why we like using our little drop downs here. So that's just saying get the first word or thing before a space, a quantity amount, a unit price, and a total. And this is just really simple drop downs. In our latest version, it actually has the English language thing so that anyone could look at it and understand what's going on. And then if I click view extracted table again, beautiful, we've got everything we're after. I click save template, and anytime this bar engineering format comes in again, we will be extracting all of the data correctly going forward. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have to show you Accelerator right now, but I will now just show you FSS reports, which gather information from both Accelerator and Transact to give you the best information on what templates need updating, fixing, any suppliers that don't have templates and they're high volume, and it just lets you prioritize how you can spend your time to get the best straight through processing. So we'll show that now. All right, so this is our report system, our Accelerator reports. This is actually a customer that we are working with to improve their straight through processing because they have what I would describe as garbage currently, but it's also a lot down to their processes and quality of the documents and the information on those documents. But that's just justifying myself in this case. But this is our dashboard. So this is just some high level information, straight through processing, user interaction. So who's been doing what, the volume. So I've just got it selected as last 30 days. We've got other filters. We can choose which batch classes we're looking at. And then we've got additional filters over here. If I click on it, so document type, company name, batch instance ID, including blanks. So that's just fields that are always, or cells that are blank all the way through from extraction to export, and that changes our figures depending on what other filters we're using. But template version is probably a very useful one for if we just have current. So we're only seeing information then on the most current template in the system. So we're not, when we're looking at what templates to improve, we're not inundated with older templates information that may have been fixed up already. So just at the high level, we've got how many were exported, straight through process, average processing time, DLF reuse accuracy. So of the reuse results we presented, how many weren't changed, basically, and then volume information, and we can go down to orders, month, and day, user interaction. And then this is where it gets a bit more interesting for me, is especially from the accelerated template side of things, is we've got information on how many, like your biggest suppliers by how many documents were processed, how many of those straight through processed, how many were manually processed. So we want to look at manually processed ones and go, right, so Sydney Water, every single one of those was manually processed, why? And we can look into all of that information. We can also look at different templates and their extraction accuracy rates. And on this one, average pages per doc is an interesting one to have, because you may have a page count that you're trying to keep quite reasonable, and certain companies. So these are not horrible, but I've seen like one supplier send for one document like 500, 600 pages when all of the key information is actually on the first page. And maybe if you've got a manual step in the middle that just gets the first page, you can significantly cut back on page count if that's something you're worried about. And then this is just our dashboard. We have many more. Pop that out. A bunch of other pages. So I've created a little pop out, but we've also got the one that comes with the Power BI down the bottom here. So I'm going to use mine. So we've got more volume information. So information on daily volume per hour. So this is kind of useful for management in terms of like determining what your busiest times of the day are, busiest days of the week, just for maybe you want to get more people working on exceptions at so on a Friday, we've got much more volume from 11 till like 5. So we want more people on then, but in the morning it's kind of, you could just have one person maybe. And yeah, just interesting information from a management perspective. And again, we can filter on batches, documents, extracted data, value, and pages. But I'm just going to quickly rush through all this, sorry. Classification and extraction just has more detailed information on those. This customer only has doc level information, but yeah, our reports also report on all table level information. So what's been changed, what was extracted, all of that stuff. We've got some straight through processing info, so the percentage obviously, but also reasons why they stopped. So this one's only stopped 1,391 only stopped because of another document in the batch. So that could have been an unknown document or just one that had a validation issue. So it may be a low straight through processing percentage, but we can see more in-depth reasons why that's happening, like documents were deleted and all of that. And then we've got, this just kind of in a tabular form. So you can see another doc in the batch. It was happening a lot for Sydney Plumbing, this lift place. So maybe these companies are sending additional stuff, and we could maybe set up a new doc type of delete or unknown, and have them configure them as a template in themselves if they're consistent, and automatically remove them just to get our processing up again. And then we've got straight through processing percentages against volume, then per day, per hour again. And now I'm just going to quickly go to users. So we got information on what users have been doing in the system. So each individual user, how many documents have they deleted, DLFs have they changed, document types changed. So we can see like what people have been doing basically, and how much work has been going on. I need to make a few changes to these because they should be hidden. I don't really know why I've added these. And then just, yeah, high level again. And then the crucial one for me, when I'm looking at fixing up systems, there we go. What I care about is, so it's useful to know how many, the straight through processing and everything, but I want to know what changes I need to make the amount of DLFs that are getting changed the lowest they can be, basically. So I can look at Sydney Water here and go, okay, these are the 3 templates. So this is the company name, template name. So unknown is just, it didn't classify as anything. It actually came through as an unknown document. It didn't even get a template, a general template. And then for Sydney Water, we can see, okay, invoice date. It's really struggling with that. Is that it could be the quality of the document where it's not picking up correctly, or it could be we could get it from a different place, improve it. And the same with these ones. So we know that if I search for Sydney Water in that batch class, I know what to look at basically. And I would just prioritize these based on what impact it's going to have for users. So we want these going through as fast as possible. So the less changes that are required, the faster they're going through the system. And yeah, we just know whether to create new templates or fix existing ones. And yeah, I find it incredibly useful, and it really improves the ability to go from what is currently a poor straight through processing percentage to, yeah, we're actually kicking goals and looking good. So I've got some other screens here, but they're not massive. It's like documents deleted, pages deleted. And I guess this is a useful one of who's sending the documents that are getting deleted. So post service mate, they're constantly sending rubbish, same as a group New South Wales, 74 documents have been deleted for them. So it's a case of like, do we want to call up these people because they're wasting page count and say, stop sending this, or maybe pre-processing? It's, yeah, it just gives you more data on how to improve the system. So yeah, that is it. And yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers.
Hello, everybody. I'm just trying to get back to my video as well. Thank you very much for attending over. We do have a couple questions. We'll just reach out to you individually to answer those questions since we're over time. Did want to put up the splash screen. Get a hold of us, talk to us, send us an email. I'm actually pat@ziaconsulting.com. You can email me directly if you want. And please tune in. So get online and follow us on our various social networks. I want to thank you very much for attending. And we're going to go ahead and stop the recording and end the webinar. And please, if you have any questions after this time, reach out again. We'll answer anything. If you want a personalized demonstration with your content, just let us know and we'll arrange that. Thank you very much. I appreciate your attending.